You know your marriage is over when your wife texts you like a hotel receptionist. Professional, distant, like she's informing a guest that housekeeping won't be available until Tuesday. The message came through at 7:43 p.m. on a Thursday. I was sitting in my home office, debugging code for a client's inventory system, when my phone buzzed against the desk. Staying at Jennifer's tonight, don't worry. Girls' night ran late. Love you. Love you, right. Angela hadn't said those words to my face in 3 months, but apparently she could still type them. I stared at the screen, that familiar knot forming in my stomach. The same knot I'd been ignoring for weeks, while Angela transformed from my wife of 12 years into someone I barely recognized. Someone who bought new lingerie but never wore it around me. Someone who suddenly needed space and girls' nights twice a week. My name is Nate Callahan, and I'm 42 years old. I write software for small businesses, fix their broken systems, and make enough money to keep us comfortable in our 3-bedroom house in Clearwater. I'm not particularly handsome, not particularly exciting, but I thought I was a decent husband. Apparently decent doesn't cut it anymore. I saved my work and walked to the kitchen, Angela's text still glowing on my phone. The house felt different when she wasn't here. Quieter, but not in a peaceful way. More like the quiet you get right before a storm hits. That's when I heard it. Angela's ringtone coming from upstairs. She'd left her personal phone behind, the one she claimed was broken and had replaced with a new iPhone last month. The one she said she was still transferring contacts to. I climbed the stairs, following the sound to our bedroom. The phone was charging on her nightstand, buzzing insistently. The caller ID read, Jennifer Morrison. My finger hovered over the answer button. Every rational part of my brain screamed not to do it. But rationality had checked out around the time I found receipts for Victoria's Secret hidden in Angela's car. Hello? Angie? Thank God you answered. I've been trying to reach you all day. Are you still coming to Mom's birthday dinner tomorrow? She's been asking about... This is Nate. Silence. Then, oh, hi, Nate. I thought... Angela said she was staying with me tonight? The knot in my stomach twisted tighter. That's what she told me too. More silence. Jennifer cleared her throat. Maybe she meant she was coming over later, after her work thing? Work thing. Right. Angela worked in HR for a medical supply company. Their idea of after-hours excitement was arguing over coffee brands for the break room. Jennifer, I said carefully, when's the last time you actually saw Angela? Last weekend? We had lunch at that new place on Gulf to Bay. Last weekend, not tonight, not even this week. If she shows up, I said, tell her I called. I hung up before Jennifer could respond. Standing in my bedroom, holding my wife's abandoned phone, I felt something shift inside me. Not heartbreak. That would come later. This was colder, sharper. This was the moment when Nate Callahan, the understanding husband, started dying, and something else began to take his place. I'd suspected for weeks, but suspicion is different from knowing. Suspicion leaves room for doubt, for explanations, for hope. Knowing burns all that away. I walked to my laptop and opened a browser. It took me exactly 4 minutes to find Derek Fox's address on the county property records. Derek Fox, Angela's ex-boyfriend from college. Derek Fox, who'd moved back to Clearwater 6 months ago after his divorce. Derek Fox, who sold real estate and drove a Tesla and posted motivational quotes on Facebook like he'd invented success. The drive to Derek's house took 12 minutes. His neighborhood was newer than ours, all Mediterranean-style homes with perfect lawns and 3-car garages, the kind of place where people measured their worth in square footage and granite countertops. I parked across the street from 4247 Pelican Bay Drive and turned off my engine. Derek's house was lit up like Christmas morning. Through the large front window, I could see straight into his living room. And there they were. Angela, wearing the black dress I'd complimented her on that morning, curled up on Derek's leather couch. Derek, looking exactly like the smug bastard I remembered from Angela's college photos, had his arm around her shoulders. They were watching something on his massive TV, sharing a bowl of popcorn like teenagers. Like a couple. I sat in my car for 20 minutes, watching my wife play house with another man. She laughed at something Derek said, that genuine laugh I hadn't heard in months. She tucked her feet under her, getting comfortable, getting settled. This wasn't a moment of weakness. This wasn't a mistake. This was a choice, a pattern. A life she was building while pretending to build one with me. My phone buzzed. A text from Angela's new number. "Jennifer says you called? Everything okay?" I stared at the message, then at the window where Angela was now feeding Derek popcorn. The audacity was breathtaking. She was literally texting me while sitting in another man's arms. I typed back, "Everything's fine. Enjoy your girls' night." "Thanks, babe. Love you. Love you." From Derek Fox's couch. While wearing the dress I'd bought her for our anniversary. I started my car and drove home. But the man who walked back into our house wasn't the same one who'd left it 37 minutes earlier. That man had been willing to overlook things, to give Angela the benefit of the doubt, to keep pretending everything was fine. This man was done pretending. I spent the rest of the night planning. Not revenge, not yet. Planning is different. Planning is methodical. Planning is what you do when you realize you're not dealing with a marriage problem anymore. You're dealing with a war. And in war, the side that gathers the best intelligence usually wins. By the time Angela came home the next morning, full of stories about Jennifer's drama and how they'd talked all night, I was ready. I made her coffee, kissed her cheek, and asked about her evening with the same concerned interest I'd shown for 12 years. "You look tired," I said, which was true. Adultery is apparently exhausting. "Jennifer's going through a rough patch," Angela replied, accepting the coffee like she deserved it. "You know how it is." I did know how it was. I just hadn't known how well Angela had learned to lie. "I'm glad you were there for her," I said. Angela smiled, probably thinking she'd fooled me again. "That's what friends are for." Friends. Right. I went to work that day and functioned normally, answered emails, fixed bugs, attended a client meeting, but underneath the routine, something was calculating, something was planning. That afternoon, I stopped by the gym where I'd been a member for 3 years but rarely used. I found Todd Martinez in the weight room, where he spent most of his free time since his own divorce 2 years ago. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. Todd was ex-military, the kind of guy who said exactly what he thought and had no patience for bullshit. We'd grabbed beers a few times, complained about work, talked about sports. He was probably the closest thing I had to a real friend. "Callahan," he said, setting down his weights. "Don't tell me you're finally going to use that membership." "I need advice," I said. Todd studied my face. "What kind of advice?" "The kind you give when someone's been making a fool out of you." He nodded slowly. "Angela, how'd you know?" "Same look I had when I found out about Sharon, like someone punched you in the gut but you're still standing." He grabbed a towel. "What do you want to do about it?" That was the question, wasn't it? What did I want to do? "I want her to feel what I felt last night," I said. "When I realized everything I thought was real was just a performance." Todd grinned, but it wasn't a nice expression. "Now you're talking, but if you're going to do this, you do it smart. You do it right. And you make sure when it's over, you're the one left standing." "I'm listening." First rule, gather evidence. Everything, photos, times, places. You're going to need proof, not just for yourself, but for later. Later. Divorce court, assuming that's where this ends up. But more importantly, you want evidence for the court of public opinion. Nothing destroys someone like Angela faster than being exposed in front of people whose opinions she values. I thought about Angela's carefully maintained social media presence, her concern about what the neighbors thought, her need to be seen as the perfect wife and professional. Second rule, Todd continued, don't let them know you know. Not yet. Let them get comfortable, make mistakes. People get sloppy when they think they're getting away with something. How long? As long as it takes to build your case. Could be days, could be weeks. But when you're ready to move, you move fast and you move completely. No half measures. I left the gym with a plan. More than a plan. A mission. Over the next 2 weeks, I became a different person. Not obviously. Angela didn't notice anything different. But I was watching everything, remembering everything, documenting everything. I followed her twice, carefully, staying far enough back to avoid detection. Both times, she went straight to Derek's house. Both times, she texted me elaborate stories about where she really was. I started paying attention to her phone calls, the ones she took in the other room. I noticed how she angled her phone away from me when texting. I saw how she'd changed her passwords on everything, something she'd never bothered with in 12 years of marriage. But the real breakthrough came when I overheard her talking to her friend Lisa at a coffee shop downtown. I'd gone there to meet a client, and I spotted Angela and Lisa at a corner table. Instead of saying hello, I took a seat where I could hear them but remain unseen. He's so much more exciting than Nate, Angela was saying. Derek actually wants to do things, go places. We're talking about taking a trip to Key West next month. What about Nate? Lisa asked. What about him? He's so wrapped up in his computer work, he barely notices I'm gone half the time. Honestly, I think he's relieved when I'm not around. Lisa laughed. So you're really going to leave him? Eventually. Derek wants me to, but I need to time it right. I want to make sure I get my fair share of everything first. My fair share. Of the house I'd bought, of the savings I'd built, of the life I'd created while she was planning her exit strategy. Derek's business is really taking off, Angela continued. He just bought that new Tesla and he's looking at a bigger house. He says once I'm free, we can really start living. Free. Like I was a prison sentence she was serving. I left the coffee shop with my client meeting forgotten. I had what I needed now. Not just evidence of the affair, but evidence of the plan. Angela wasn't just cheating. She was strategizing. She was going to leave me, but only after she'd positioned herself to take as much as possible. That night, I started phase 2 of my own strategy. I began with Derek's professional life. A few anonymous tips to his brokerage about some questionable practices I'd observed during my surveillance. Nothing illegal, just concerning. Like how he'd been using his company car for personal trips with Angela. How he'd been conducting personal business during company time. Then I started working on their social circle. Angela's friends thought they knew the whole story, but they only knew Angela's version. I began planting seeds of doubt, asking innocent questions that made people think. Has Angela seemed different to you lately? I asked Jennifer when I ran into her at the grocery store. She's been so secretive about her plans. Different how? Jennifer asked, immediately interested. I don't know. Distant. Like she's got something big going on that she can't talk about. I let Jennifer's imagination fill in the blanks. Within a week, I started hearing from mutual friends who were concerned about Angela. But the real masterpiece was Derek's HOA. Derek lived in one of those neighborhoods with strict rules about everything from lawn height to parking. I'd done my research and discovered that Derek's Tesla was violating several HOA covenants. The car was too often parked in guest spaces overnight. He'd been running what appeared to be a business out of his home without proper permits. A few anonymous reports later, Derek was dealing with HOA violations and fines. Nothing major, but enough to stress him out and make him paranoid about who was watching him. Angela started coming home frustrated from her girls' nights. Derek was becoming moody and stressed about work. Their perfect little bubble was developing cracks. That's when I decided it was time for the direct approach. I waited until a Saturday when Angela was supposedly at a spa day with Lisa. Instead, I knew she was at Derek's house because I'd seen her car in his driveway. I drove over and parked right in front of his house. Then I called Angela's phone. "Hey, babe," she answered, and I could hear Derek's voice in the background. "Where are you?" I asked. "At the spa, remember? Lisa and I are getting facials." "That's funny," I said, looking directly at Derek's front window, "because Lisa just posted on Facebook that she's at her son's baseball game." Silence. Maybe she meant after the game," Angela said, but her voice had lost its confidence. "Angela," I said, my voice calm and level, "I'm sitting outside Derek Fox's house. I can see your car in his driveway." More silence. Then Derek's voice, louder now. "Is that him?" "I think it's time we all had a conversation," I said. "I'll wait." I hung up and sat in my car, engine running, staring at Derek's front door. This was it. The moment when everything became real for all of us. The front door opened, and Derek walked out first. He was trying to look confident, but I could see the tension in his shoulders. Angela followed, her face pale, her hands shaking. I rolled down my window as they approached. "Nate," Angela started, "I can explain—" "No need," I said. "I've been watching you two for weeks. I know exactly what's going on." Derek stepped forward, trying to assert some kind of authority. "Look, man, this is between you and your wife." When Angela's affair with Derek unraveled in public, I didn't shout or threaten. I exposed the truth. A website, a few screenshots, one email blast, and her perfect image crumbled overnight. Friends, family, co-workers, everyone saw who she really was. By Sunday, she'd lost her marriage, her job, her lover, and her composure. Derek lost his job soon after, blaming her for everything. She packed 2 suitcases and left. I didn't answer her calls. 3 months later, the divorce was final. She got half of nothing. I rebuilt, moved to the beach, started over, discovered peace in solitude. When I ran into her friend months later, she said Angela still asked about me. I told her to say I was grateful, that Angela showed me who she really was before I wasted more years. The truth was simple. I didn't get even. I got free.